He prescribed me silence. I remember the sound of his pen, a crisp, unnerving scratch on expensive paper, and his voice, calm and clinical, as he wrote my diagnosis. Initial assessment, he'd said, the patient suffers from an acute aversion to the cacophony of modern life. The world has become too loud for her. The scratching stopped. My prescription is simple, radical, but simple. Then I was there, arriving at an imposing silent manor shrouded in mist, with his final words echoing in my head. Absolute silence. Section 1. The prescription. My name is Ilara. For most of my life, the world felt like a relentless assault of noise. Car horns shouting, the endless hum of electricity. It was a physical weight, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. Doctors gave it fancy names: hyperacusis, severe anxiety, sensory overload. They gave me pills that dulled the world, but they dulled me too. Then I found Dr. Alistair Blackwood. He wasn't like the others. His office was an island of quiet in the city's roaring ocean. He just listened. His eyes held this strange, hypnotic calm. He didn't offer pills. He offered a cure. A rescue, he called it. A throwback to another century. An escape to his private manor. Blackwood Grange. A place supposedly untouched by the noise of the 21st century. There was just one unbreakable rule. I had to embrace total and absolute silence. No talking, no music, no loud noises at all. When I first arrived, it was paradise. The manor was this grand gothic cathedral of quiet. The air was thick and still, tasting of old wood and rain. For the first time in years, that crushing pressure in my skull just receded. The silence was a balm, like a cool hand on a fevered brow. Dr. Blackwood was a gracious host, communicating with gentle hand gestures and reassuring smiles. He'd leave my meals outside my door, and I'd spend my days reading in the vast library or walking the overgrown gardens where even the birds seemed to hold their breath. Peace, it was a foreign concept, a language I was finally starting to understand. I could feel myself healing. That constant knot of fear in my stomach was finally uncoiling. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of relief, full of hope. Section 2. The cracks in the silence. The first week was bliss. The second, that was different. The silence started to change its texture. It wasn't a comforting blanket anymore. It was a heavy shroud, pressing in on me, filling my ears until they rang. The total absence of sound became a sound in itself, a low, constant hum that vibrated deep in my bones. That's when I started to hear things. It began subtly, a single floorboard creaking upstairs. Even when I knew Dr. Blackwood was out, I'd freeze, straining my ears, but there was never anything but that oppressive stillness. I told myself it was just the old house settling. It was a lie, and I knew it. Then came the whispers, so faint at first, I thought it was the wind, or just the blood rushing in my ears. A soft, sibilant hiss from a dark corner of the library, a breathy murmur from the other side of my bedroom door. I'd fling the door open, my heart hammering, only to find the hallway empty, silent, and just waiting. My sanity began to fray. The quiet I had craved was now my tormentor. I started to become terrified of my own noise. A cough felt like a gunshot. The rustle of my bed sheets was a deafening roar. I took to walking on my tiptoes, breathing as shallowly as I could, trying to make myself as silent as the house. I was becoming a ghost in a place that felt increasingly haunted. One rainy afternoon, desperate for a distraction, I found myself in a disused wing of the manor. In a small, forgotten study, there was a locked desk drawer with the key still in it. Inside, under a stack of yellowed papers, was a small, leather-bound diary. The handwriting was frantic, spidery. It belonged to another of Dr. Blackwood's patients, a woman named Clara. Her first entries sounded just like mine, praising the miraculous peace of Blackwood Grange. But then, her tone shifted. "The silence is no longer a friend," she wrote. "It has teeth. It watches me. When I am perfectly still, I can almost hear it breathing. It's hungry." I kept reading, my hands shaking. Her entries grew more and more panicked. She wrote of whispers in the walls, of a presence that fed on the quiet. "The doctor says I must remain calm, that the noise in my head is the illness leaving. But it is not my noise. It is the house's. It wants me to be quiet, so it can be heard. It's drawn to the small sounds, a dropped pen, a sneeze. Last night, I knocked over a glass of water. For a moment, right after the crash, I saw it in the corner of my eye. A shadow, tall and thin, with fingers like claws. My blood ran cold. The final entry was a single terrifying sentence, scrawled so hard the pen had torn the page. "I cannot bear it. I am going to scream. God help me." After that, the pages were blank. A wave of nausea washed over me. This wasn't a cure, it was a trap. The silence wasn't meant to heal me, it was meant to prime me, to make me a perfect, quiet little vessel. That night I lay in bed, rigid with terror. The gentle creaks of the house were no longer benign. They were footsteps. The whisper was no longer the wind. It was a voice, and it was getting closer. It was testing the silence, waiting for me to break it. I held my breath, my own heartbeat a frantic drum against a suffocating quiet, praying for a morning that felt like it might never come. Section 3. The Crescendo. The next few days were a wakened nightmare. I lived in a state of self-imposed paralysis. I stopped eating, afraid the sound of chewing would be too loud. I barely moved, terrified a creaking joint or the scuff of a shoe would summon the thing Clara wrote about. The house was a predator, and I was its cornered prey. The silence was absolute, a perfect, unbroken void. And in that void, the presence grew stronger. I didn't hear it anymore. I felt it, a cold spot drifting through the room, the prickling sensation of being watched. I'd see it in my peripheral vision, a flicker of impossible darkness, a shape that twisted in ways that physics shouldn't allow. It was a being woven from the absence of sound, a living vacuum that was getting bolder, drawn to the tiny spark of life I was so desperately trying to snuff out. My mind was unraveling. The psychological weight of the silence was more agonizing than any noise had ever been. It was torture. I kept thinking of Clara's final words. "I'm going to scream." Was that surrender, or was it defiance? The thought became an obsession. The pressure in my skull was back, 1,000 times worse than before. It wasn't the world that was too loud, it was the utter lack of it. My throat ached with the need to make a sound,
Turn around.
any sound, just to prove I still existed.
Don't make a sound.
The silence had to be broken. That night, I stood in the center of the grand entrance hall. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows, painting everything in silver and black. I closed my eyes. The silence was total, perfect, ready. I took a deep, shuddering breath, filling my lungs until they burned. I thought of the city, of the cacophony I'd fled. I would have given anything to hear a siren right then. I opened my mouth and I let it all out. It wasn't a scream of terror. It was a scream of rebellion, of raw, primal roar that tore itself from my soul. It ripped through the oppressive stillness of the manor, shattering the silence into a million pieces. The sound echoed off the marble and stone, a glorious human noise. For a single beautiful second, there was only my voice. And then, the twist. The scream didn't banish the thing, it fed it. That violent switch from absolute silence to explosive sound wasn't a weapon against it. It was the catalyst. It was what gave it form. The shadows in the room didn't just move. They coalesced. They bled from the corners and oozed from the cracks in the floor. The darkness thickened, swirling into a tall, skeletal figure right in front of me. It had no face, only a gaping maw that seemed to inhale my scream, drinking it like water. Its clawed fingers unfurled, reaching not for me, but for the sound waves themselves, as if plucking strings on an invisible harp. And that's when the truth hit me, with all the force of a physical blow. The silence wasn't a cage for the monster. It was the canvas. The silence was the doctor's way of starving it, making it ravenous. My scream, my beautiful defiant scream, was its feast. It was the final ingredient. The sound gave the silence a body. The worst horrors are the ones we willingly walk into. And sometimes the cure is far, far worse than the disease. If you agree, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories that question the nature of our reality. Conclusion. As the last of my voice died in my throat, the creature solidified, and from its featureless void, a new sound emerged. A soft, guttural whisper, a horrifying echo of my own scream, twisted into something ancient and predatory. It was then I saw him, Dr. Blackwood. He was standing at the top of the grand staircase, a faint clinical smile on his face. He held his pen and notepad, as if he were making one final, satisfying observation. I can't leave Blackwood Grange now. I'm a part of its architecture. My voice is the new whisper in the walls. And sometimes, in the dead of the long, quiet nights, I can hear the front door open. I hear the doctor's calm, soothing voice welcoming a new patient, promising them peace, promising them a cure, promising them silence.